If you've been following the work we've been doing here at Future Forecasting Group over the past few years, you're well aware that we're tracking the changes coming to the world, some of which are upon us, some of which are about to unfold. We have a socio-political target the viewers worked blindly over the past week. They still do not know what the target is. The information they're about to share tonight gives a picture of more changes that may be coming to the United States and to the world. I'm joined with Daz, Sean, Edward, Dick, and Naim tonight. We're getting ready to dive into this target. We'll do a quick check-in just on your thoughts and feelings on your data this week. Daz, I'm going to start with you.
In all truth, I can't remember the RV sessions, so I won't know until I go through it.
That's what happens when you work so many targets.
I'm sorry, yeah. I vaguely remember I had lots of conflict.
Yeah. That's actually kind of fun because we do this and then we're tasked another target. So we set this one aside. You know, it's like your favorite target is, well, it's just interesting because it's fun for us to go back and relive this data and then get the feedback. So that's interesting.
Well, speaking of data, this week I had a chance to peek at everyone's sessions, and I will give a teaser to Edward to pay close attention to Dick's data. I think you're going to find it quite interesting. That's all I'm going to say. So
did Reardon break into my computer and go steal my data?
No, not for those. I think he's just going to take an interest in the content of your data. So it'll be a good one. All right, Edward, I'll check in with you if you remember your session. How are you feeling about it?
I don't remember the meat of it. There was some, conflict kind of stuff in there. But yeah, I mean, like the other guys are saying, it's fun for us to go through the sessions after a couple of weeks because we can't remember what happened in there, so we could kind of relive it. And that's how we have our fun as nerdy remote viewers.
Right, and then that feedback.
I look forward to going through it.
Yeah, this is gonna be a fun conversation. Dick, thoughts? Any other thoughts?
In my session, in my remote viewing, I'm looking at this guy that seems to be some political or some influential person, and I get the idea, it occurs to me, like, this guy is AI. He's either totally AI or enhanced by AI. So being still blind to the target, we'll see what that.
Yeah, you had some creepy data for sure. Okay, thank you, Dick. Naim, quick check-in with you. If you remember your session, how you thoughts and feelings on it?
My gist of this one is sweeping top-down change.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that came through strongly in yours for sure. Okay. All right. Well, this is going to be, I think, a pretty exciting discussion as we go through with our viewers. So I'm going to kick it off to Daz so he can dust off that old session there and take us through it. Daz, take it away, sir. You were tasked to look at the G20 Summit in Johannesburg, South Africa, November 22nd to the 23rd. Now, once we get into the tasking, which I'm going to get into in a moment, it's more than just the summit itself. You really weren't looking at the summit itself. But what comes out of the summit is what they wanted you to look at and pull back. So you guys are looking at the ripple effect from this thing that's supposed to happen in November and what's going to be the fallout of that. So we've got war, we've got more social engineering aspects, more hardships coming, so that could all be tied into the consequences of this. So there you have it. Again, you guys weren't tasked to collect on the summit directly. You were tasked, what's the fallout if the U.S. doesn't attend it or isn't a major participant in that? And we had a wide range of implications. Daz was seeing some kind of major conflict. Edward had conflict and social engineering. Dick had, again, it seemed like manipulation of the minds of people. And Naim also had this kind of gaming strategy of dividing people up and dividing the land up as well. A lot of corporate feels to this as well. So I'm curious to hear Sean's analysis on this because I think there's a lot of things to pull from. Sean, awesome analysis. Great tie-in with the lights. I didn't catch that at the end with Edward's session, comparing it to the EMF stuff. And that mouse thing is absolutely terrifying. I agree. I think we're further along than that. What do you think this says for, given the tasking, given the data that came back, what does this say for, the next 5 to 10 years for the United States overall?
Well, I mean, the aspect of EMF being used sort of as it's being weaponized. AI is somewhat being weaponized by these elite groups. I believe Naim was the one who was really putting that aspect of the upper echelon, or the aspect of the elites, right? And the political class. They can move freely, and they want to lock down on the rest of us. And Dick had elements of it in his session too, with this guy that's out doing an honest days of hard work isn't under the spell. He's not under their influence, and they want to change that. And so I think, I don't know, the story this session seems to be telling me is that these groups are getting together, and they're planning to advance this agenda of exerting more and more control over us. And that's very disturbing.
Yeah, I completely agree. Absolutely. I'm seeing those elements come through in more and more sessions that the team's doing as well. We're seeing more and more elements of that manipulation and control. I'm going to do a quick check-in with the viewers to get our final thoughts, and then we'll transition into our after chat that we'll post as a teaser for this project here. But Daz, coming back to you, when you had all this war stuff, and now you're seeing everybody else's data, thoughts and feelings on that?
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know much about the G20, but my data to me indicates that over time, I think there'll be a split. The US will go in their direction with their followers, and then the other group will form with their followers, which will be that red and blue camp that I had in my session with. Their kind of opposingness to everything. So that's all. I think we're starting to see the cracks form in the G20, and it will split.
Agreed. Interesting with red and blue on a military map, the way you differentiate, because you draw, as an intel analyst, you draw symbols that represent, where your friendlies are and where your enemies are, and the friendlies are blue and the enemies are red, and you divide them right on the map just like that. So it's a curious choice of colors. I mean, my first thought was Republican, Democrat, but that's a military, U.S.-based military color scheme for basic analysis. So, all right. Thank you, Daz. Edward, your thoughts on all of this?
Well, my session makes a lot more sense to me now with the feedback, and I can understand why some of the things happened in the session that, why they kind of went that way based on what the tasking was designed to look at. I mean, I'm not too big. Basically, everything, however, how I feel about it was what came through in my session. I'm not too thrilled about that kind of stuff, where you have these, who are these people? You go there, they're going to, I don't know. There's a lot of social engineering that comes out of there, in my opinion, and I'm not a big fan of that kind of nonsense.
Yeah, I agree. It sounds like more of the same, but it sounds like the technology is getting better and being deployed more, I think, against the common citizen, even more so than we've seen in the last election, which was pretty significant.
I mean, I can look at some of those things. Oh, yeah, they want to develop here, they want to develop there, and that sounds good to me. Developing in areas and building, and that all sounds pretty cool. The part that I don't like is this social engineering. You send your representatives over there, they get built, they get loaded up with all their agendas coming from Malta and the EU and those ilk. Then they come back here and they want to implement that stuff here. Not everybody wants that, man. I didn't vote for that. That nonsense.
I agree. I mean, it makes sense to, in terms of your experiment, you want to be able to categorize people for their strengths and their weaknesses and make the best use of that. I mean, in an ideal system, but this sounds like it's being used nefariously to divide, to sow dissent, and it cause more problems for someone else's agenda, and that's not a good thing.
I mean, I wouldn't consider myself an expert in any of these things, but I would say, quite honestly, that the worst ideas that our country has suffered has probably come from groups like the G20. The worst ideas that we've suffered are probably ideas that came from those guys.
Yeah.
I could be wrong, but that's kind of how that's my negative attitude towards it,
You're entitled to your opinion, 100%. Okay. Thank you, Edward. Dick, moving on to you, just thoughts, reactions on the target.
I think if you ask the average person, when's the next G20 summit and how does it affect your life, most people couldn't give you much of an answer. I think the downstream effects of this as a remote, it makes for a challenging remote viewing target. That would be my take. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot. Go ahead, Sean.
Yeah, I forgot to mention this in the analysis, but Dick, you had J6 popping out at you. I thought that was interesting because G20 is a letter number acronym. So J6, G20, very similar. I think that's, yeah.
Was there a G in the target queue? I
No,
knew something about that. I knew there was something that had to do with a letter and a number.
Yep.
I'm trying to search for that. I go, why? What is it? There's a letter and a number that keeps jumping out. I kept looking at that target ID. I go, this is J6.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's probably what it was.
Dick, I agree. That's a lot. That's a lot for a remote viewer to hone in on and collect data on because there's so many possible.
The thing is, the primary cue was the G20 Summit, Johannesburg, South Africa, at that date. So what that does is that places the remote viewers' awareness at the G20 Summit in Johannesburg, South Africa at that date. So we should have brought back data about people in a meeting, a bunch of politicians, which did come out. But then the sub-cue was, well, don't really look at that. You're looking at the effects of it. But the effects are that's a
very broad.
On who, on what, on which country, when, which people. It's
how
a
far
fairly nebulous tasking. So it was challenging. Yeah. I'll put it that way.
There's a lot.
Since it's a diplomatic summit, I'll put it diplomatically. It was a challenging target, but interesting. Some interesting data.
Yeah. You guys still brought back great data. So, your final thoughts on this?
Yeah, now that we got the target reveal, a lot of my data makes a little more sense. Categorizing people, looking at the stats, that's essentially what they have to do when they're planning their programs, right? Making what you mentioned in the debrief there, financial access and all, you got to classify people in order to vet your program, in order to, make your program legit. You got to show the stats and say, hey, we got to do this or we got to do that. The thing that kind of jumps out to me now, seeing their agenda, you were asking me what would they be talking about, saying that we have to make this change really fast. The thing that jumps out to me now would probably be an environmental thing that just in my head feels like that's like the fail safe. You know what I mean? They could always jump to say something environmental is the reason why we have to speed up. We got to do this faster. We got to make these changes. More of the same stuff, unfortunately.
That makes sense with your data too, because weren't they segmenting land and dividing things up too for people? So that would make a lot of sense on the thread that you were on, for sure. Yeah.
I think Canada just had some of their first versions of climate lockdowns where they're restricting people's ability to go out and do things even on their own property, and they're using the fires as a means of passing that off. And it's troubling if we're going in that direction.
Wow. That's crazy. Can't even go outside?
Yeah, it was something like no hiking, no camping, no, you can't do recreational things outside during certain dates. Naim, I don't know, maybe you know more than I do. I just read something about it recently, but.
Yeah, I saw something, someone got a $20,000 ticket or something for going out in the woods or something like that. Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Similar to the COVID thing. I mean, that is similar to the COVID thing. Like if you went out, you get written up or you get in trouble.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. All right, we're going to take this discussion into another segment. That's terrifying, though. You can't even go hiking. You get a $20,000 fine. That's nuts. All right, guys, great job on this target. I know it was a lot to look at, a lot to take in. I think it was an excellent division of effort with just the perfect amount of overlap as well, and collaboration among the teams. So really nice job on all that. And we'll see. For you, those of you out there watching this, keep your eyes to the headlines. Let us know what feedback you're seeing. And again, how do you interpret this? What's your analysis? What's your take on it? What does this say for the next 5 to 10 years for life in the United States and life in the world? We'd love to hear it and keep the discussion going within our community. On behalf of Daz, Edward, Dick, Naim, Sean, and the rest of the Future Forecasting Group, I'm Dennis Nappy II. Thanks for watching.
Watch the full debrief, including every detail from the remote viewing sessions, only at futureforecastinggroup.com.